Las Vegas was built on the idea that anything goes. In the 1940s and 50s, it was the mob. In the 70s and 80s, it was prostitution. In the 90s, it was strip clubs, escort agencies, and the internet. By the early 2000s, trafficking wasn't a back alley operation, it was a business, organized, profitable, protected. As the casinos got bigger, so did the demand for everything else. And Las Vegas became a prime hub for sex trafficking, including minors. The tourism industry brought tens of millions through the city every year, many of them believing what happens here stays here. That belief is part of the problem. As we started filming this documentary, we began reaching out for interviews. We were met with resistance. Doors were shut in our faces, people stopped returning calls, and in some cases, we were directly warned. We were told to be careful, to carry protection, that once you start exposing this issue, you become a problem for people who'd rather keep it hidden. Las Vegas is one of the top cities in the US for child sex trafficking. It's not a theory, it's confirmed by federal data, and it's sustained by two things: demand and silence. This documentary is not about conspiracy, it's about what we found when we followed the facts.
I'm Joseph Sharafi, president of Stop the Traffic Foundation. And when people talk about child exploitation, they often imagine distant crimes committed by strangers. And the truth is more complicated and far closer to home. Tonight, we investigate the hidden cost of child exploitation in America through the eyes of a survivor, a clinical expert, and the frontline advocates fighting a crisis that is growing faster than the law can track it.
This is happening right in our own communities, in our families, our friends.
In Nevada, as in most states, there is no established legal framework for a survivor of familial sexual abuse who becomes a parent as a result of that abuse.
I walked in and I saw my mother laying naked in the middle of the bed, and there was a pornographic film playing, and my father sat down and kind of said, "Hey, come closer," and then began to explain the female anatomy to me and what certain parts of women do and where babies come from and how that process happens. And then I was proceeded to get sexually assaulted by my mother, and my father watched and encouraged it.
Logan Gifford faced a custody battle with no precedent, no roadmap, and he fought anyway. Logan Gifford is now the legal guardian of his son. He asked us to use his real name, which shows real bravery. He said that someone has to. His case raises a question that goes well beyond one family's legal battle. If the law was not written for survivors like Logan, who else is it failing?
We find out she's pregnant.
With your child?
Potentially.
Did you ever find that out? Because
Not
of
yet.
research and you're still trying to find out? What is the process of that? Is he not willing to?
No, he's willing to. So that whole situation, right? He was under the care of my father for a long time. And, I was going to tell that portion on why he stayed there for a while. But long story short, the reason why I had submitted a paternity test query is I finally felt as though I had enough financial resources personally, because in family court, you don't get a lawyer for free, right? Secondly, it was a failure of the state because I told them that possibility during the first criminal trial, and they never offered to do a DNA test, and it should have, in my opinion, been dealt with then. But then I don't have any custodial or guardianship rights, so I can't just take him to the doctor and say, "Hey, do this test."
So what was the procedure? Did you get it done?
Judge Ochoa finally did order a paternity test. We're waiting for the results currently. The last time we spoke, we had a couple of different hearings surrounding our case. So we went and gave DNA, my brother and I, back in May. We went to LabCorp. So in between all of that, we had a hearing about the results. And the first results indicated that came back is that I had a 99.9% test that it's me.
And that was what was in the news?
Yes. So that first hits. Then so my results came back. Doreen said she had given hers and that Ted was having his results processing. So we have a continuance hearing for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks later, we come back. And then Ted pops up 99.9 as well. Yes.
Wow.
Why can't we just have mandatory genetic testing for all incest cases?
What
Because
is the issue with that? What is the issue
that's
with
what I've
doing
been
the genetic
calling
test?
for. And I hate to say it, I think society has swept it underneath the rug. We don't want to look at it. He's a psychiatrist, and where he gets his counseling came to me and said, Logan, your paperwork is expired. When are you going to have new paperwork? Because we may have to interrupt his services. How is that fair to him? I don't have final court orders yet on this, and it's impacting him, who is the victim in all of this, who didn't ask for any of this, and who is just trying to simply understand and treat his ailments.
To understand why these crimes are so often missed by communities, by institutions, and by families, we spoke with a professional psychologist who spent years certified by the state to evaluate and rehabilitate convicted sex offenders. They have studied how predators think, and what they found is not comfortable.
I've been in my prior profession before I retired. I was a clinical and forensic psychologist. So I actually used to treat sex offenders. That was part of our contract. They're sexual deviants, so they see individuals as objects. They don't see them as humans. And so depending on what their motivation is, they will utilize whatever tools necessary. Yeah, they like control, they like force, they like intimidation.
Evil rarely looks like a monster. Most of the time, it looks like someone who the community already trusts. The trust, as we found in a case after case, is not incidental. For a predator, it is the strategy, and institutions that should have recognized that strategy have instead repeatedly protected the person, not the child.
A lot of times the groomers are on social media, video games pretending as that they're an individual, the child's age, and they're talking to them and gaining that trust, building that relationship, and then they'll start slowly talking and trying to connect. Within neighborhoods, it could be anyone. It could be in a school, it could be a coach, it could be a pastor, it could be a neighbor, it could be their friend's parent, it could be anywhere. It could be the guy down the street who is a boyfriend pretending to be the boyfriend, who just convinces the girl, the female, hey, I just want you to do this one time. We really need the money. You just have to do this one time. She doesn't realize he's not a boyfriend, he's her pimp. And he is going to turn her out and continue this relationship. And she feels trapped and nowhere out. There are syndicates and chains that do this. It covers the gambit. It could be an individual. Many times a lot of my clients were individuals. You know, the grandfather, the uncle, the parent, the father.
The FBI calls it one of the fastest growing crimes against children in the country. It has a clinical name, sextortion. Predators contact children online, coerce them into sending sexual images, then blackmail them into sending money, using the threat of exposure to family and friends. It is killing teenagers, and most parents have never even heard of it. The numbers are documented. 36 million plus reports of child sexual abuse material received in 2023. Financial sextortion reports up 400% between 2021 and 2023. FBI national warning issued November 2022. Teen boys ages 14 to 17 are primary sextortion targets. Multiple confirmed teen suicides linked to sextortion networks 2021 to 2023. Boys between the ages of 14 and 17 are the primary target demographic, a fact that surprises most people. These boys rarely report. The silence is what the predators are counting on.
Sextortion started initially 2013, and it was from the Philippines primarily. Now it's from Nigeria. Whether the Nigerians are here or in Nigeria, but they are the largest amount of perpetrators. Sextortion really started coming into play a couple of years ago, and it's the financial extortion. It has nothing to do with sex. And it goes very, very quick. Everything is online. And they contact primarily young boys from good families where there is money. They target 14 to 17-year-olds, sometimes younger. Always nighttime when they sit on the room by themselves, no one around. They pretend to be a young girl, their age, and they send a little message. Oh, I saw you on whichever app, and we seem to have a lot in common. And she sends a little picture of a cute girl, and then they start a conversation. And it can take time. Sometimes it goes very fast because now she wants a picture of the young boy, and preferably a nude picture. Believe it or not, sooner or later, they get that picture. It can take time or it can be very quick.
And if they don't get the picture, they can just use AI.
Well, now, yeah, exactly. This is the new thing. This is the scary part what's happening now. We didn't have that a couple of years ago, but now we do. So I used to go out and say, don't send, whatever you do, don't send any pictures, is what I used to go out and say. Because the first time, as soon as they have the picture, the extortion starts, and it can go very quick. Now I have to say, don't even respond. If someone contacts you, don't respond. And the poor little boy knows, well, this isn't me, but he also knows no one else knows that. So the damage is the same. And tragically, why this has come to light so much, it ends oftentimes in suicide. I tell, first of all, what you have to learn, FBI can trace everything. The mother was talking. She knew the whole conversation with her son who committed suicide. And she had the whole conversation. And you know why? Because FBI came in, opened everything up to her. She could hear it. She could read it. She had it. They can trace everything as long as you don't erase anything and as long as you call them. They have to know.
The internet did not create predators. It gave them unlimited access, and the law has not kept pace. Researchers who study trafficking identify the same upstream risk factors across nearly every case: family instability, economic precarity, and a lack of adult supervision. I went to Washington to report on an argument being made by child welfare advocates that policies which separate families, particularly immigration enforcement that removes parents from children, have documented downstream effects on child safety. Unaccompanied minors face significantly elevated trafficking risk. DHS Office of Inspector General, Academic Trafficking Research Literature. Child welfare researchers document that instability, regardless of its cause, is one of the most consistent predicators of exploitation vulnerability. There are those that argue that deterrence must take precedence, that enforcement protects more children than it puts at risk. That argument has been made in Washington, and it deserves to be reported as well. What is not in dispute is this: a vulnerable child is rarely an accident. Vulnerability is almost always the result of adult decisions.
Las Vegas is a hotspot for human trafficking, and even worse, they've identified several locations as being hotbeds for human traffickers to pick up victims. And so it's sad that we've not only have identified the city, but we've identified locations. We all have to come to the table, and it works in partnership. So you have to work between all of the local municipalities, all the way down to the school board, and then all the way back up to the state. This is going to take a group effort. This is not going to be just one set of laws or bills that are going to have to be made. This is going to be a group effort. And also, even in federally, we're going to need federal dollars to making sure that we are providing Metro, we're providing Homeland Security with the avenues to be able to come after these bad guys. Even though I love Vegas, it's an amazing place to live in, and there's so many amazing things that to do and eat and see in Las Vegas. It has become a hotbed, and it is because there's a lot of things going on between gambling, between even there's prostitution. There's a lot of terrible things that can happen in Sin City. And we as Americans, we as Nevadans have to be able to stand up against that sin concept and be able to go and say, this is wrong. You might be okay with gambling, but the prostitution and the abuse that's happening with these young victims is too much. Even as a candidate, you have to think about what are the kitchen table issues, and people don't necessarily think about those issues. Those aren't issues that are occurring to people day to day that are voters. And so they might not even have that consideration because it's not happening to their family. CPS or DCFS, foster care system, has issues because remember, they have a high caseload. The case managers, they're doing the best that they can. But they're not there every day for every second with those children, depending on where they're at. If they're in a foster home or in a facility, they can't monitor those children. The predators know when there's a lack of supervision, they have access. And so sometimes even the individuals that work in those facilities are predators. Even there was something insane, but it was like a food delivery service. They were predators and they would go bring food to monitors at these facilities in exchange to get access to these children.
Well, they get lured into it, to being groomed, get lured into it. And sometimes it's not even the trafficker that gets them. They can use a woman or nice young lady that kind of convince them to come into it. And even better if they're foster kids or homeless, because the likelihood they're going to be reported as missing is pretty much nil.
How long do you think it takes for a predator to pick up a runaway that's like left maybe the foster system? How long do you think they got?
Usually within 24 hours.
And why is that? Do they know where the kids go? Do they know the hot spots? Like,
they hang around because many times when these kids are runaways, they are hungry, they have no money, they have no means to get anything. So they're looking around, usually fast food places or things like that, just to see if someone would buy them a meal or they could get something that someone threw out.
child exploitation is not one crime with one solution. It is a pattern that adapts to new technologies and new systems and new vulnerabilities. What looks like a stranger danger problem turns out to be a family problem. And what looks to be like a law enforcement problem turns out to be an institutional problem. The cases that have been reported tonight are not anomalies. They are data points in a pattern that runs through the entire history of American institutions. Jerry Sandusky, Penn State, convicted 2012, 45 counts. Senior officials informed, chose institution reputation over child safety. Pennsylvania Grand Jury, FRIA report, 2012. Larry Nassar, USA Gymnastics, 265 plus survivors. 3 institutions received complaints. FBI delayed investigation for over a year. Senate Judiciary Committee report, 2021. Jeffrey Epstein, federal trafficking charges, 2019, died in federal custody. Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted 2021. SDNY court records, Department of Justice. Catholic Church, Boston Archdiocese, Cardinal Law, reassigned 80-plus priest with known abuse histories. Fled to Vatican, 2002. Boston Globe, Archdiocese personnel records. Georgia Tan, Tennessee Children's Home Society, 1920s to 1950. Thousands of children trafficked through falsified adoption records. Political protection, never prosecuted. Barbara Raymond, the baby thief, 2007. Tennessee state records. In every one of these cases, without exception, adults who were not the perpetrators had information. And in every case, institutions made a calculation. Their reputation was worth more than the children in their care. That calculation has a cost, and children pay it.
I survived this. I'm a lucky one.
What moment in my career will I think about? Probably 2 or 3 sex trafficking calls. I can tell you the girl's name. I can't say it on camera. I was with Paul Van Benton, Jimmy Johnson, and Aaron Rupp. We turned right out of the barn, left onto Blue Diamond, crossed over the highway, becomes Windmill, make a right onto the boulevard, and we went to a condominium. And someone there had dialed for an unknown problem person down. We go to the reported address. There's nobody answering the door. We ring the bell, we knock, we get ready to leave. The garage door was crooked, so it hadn't set right when they pushed the close button. And something about it didn't seem right to me. So I asked the captain to go back to the rig. And he said, "What do you want me to go back to the rig for?" I said, "Because I think I'm going to break into this house," which we're not supposed to do. But we grabbed an axe and a Halligan tool, and we were able to prop open the garage door. And in the middle of the summer, probably 120 degrees inside that garage door, was a young lady naked with used condoms all over the floor. And she had been the victim of sex trafficking.
What looks like something that happened somewhere else turns out to be happening here. Logan Gifford won his case. His son has a father. But for every Logan, there are thousands of cases that never see a courtroom. Thousands of children whose names we will never know. Are we paying attention before the damage is done? None of this is new. In Delaware, the age of consent was 7 years old until 1871. The women who fought to change those laws did not yet even have the right to vote. Every generation believes it has finally confronted this problem. Every generation has been wrong. The question is not whether we are more enlightened than those who came before us. The question is whether we are willing to prove it.